Hello everyone. What turns a car into a legend? It's not just speed, it's legacy. And no legacy is more powerful than the Nissan GT-R, a car the world came to call Godzilla. Our story begins not with Nissan, but with Prince Motor Company. Their chief engineer, Shinichiro Sakurai, had a vision. In 1964, his Prince Skyline sedan famously challenged a Porsche 904 at the Japanese Grand Prix. That moment planted the seed. After Prince merged with Nissan in 1966, Sakurai was set to build a true conqueror. In 1969, the first Nissan Skyline 2000 GT-R, PGC-10, was born. Nicknamed the Hakusuka or Boxy Skyline, it was a humble sedan with the heart of a purebred racer, the S20 engine. This was a 24-valve, DOHC, triple-carbureted beast derived from a prototype race car. The GT-R was born for one purpose: to win. And it did. From 1969 to 1972, the Hakusuka achieved a staggering 50 victories, dominating the Japanese Touring Car Championship. Nissan followed this up in 1973 with the Kenmari KPGC 110. It had the looks and the S20 engine, but disaster struck. The 1973 oil crisis killed demand for high-performance cars. Production was halted after only 197 units. The GT-R name, as quickly as it had appeared, vanished. This began a 16-year dark age. The GT-R was dormant, waiting. But in the late 1980s, driven by a new racing class called Group A, Nissan decided it was time to awaken the monster. The GT-R's resurrection had one goal: dominate Group A racing. To beat the dominant Ford Sierra, Nissan's engineers, led by Naganori Ito, created a technological monster: the R32 Nissan Skyline GT-R. The original rear-wheel drive plan was scrapped. It simply couldn't handle the power. The solution was a trio of technologies that defined its legacy. First, the RB26 DETT engine. A 2.6L, twin-turbo, cast-iron block inline-six, built for racing and famously underrated at 276 horsepower. Second, the Atessa ETS all-wheel drive system. A revolutionary setup that ran as rear-wheel drive until traction was lost, at which point it could send power to the front. Third, the Supercars four-wheel steering system, which helped the heavy car pivot with shocking agility. The result was a road-legal race car. Its performance was not just dominant, it was apocalyptic. In the Japanese Touring Car Championship, JTCC, the R32 won 29 out of 29 races from 1990 to 1993, effectively killing the series. But its legend was sealed in Australia. At the legendary Bathurst 1000, it so thoroughly humiliated the local V8 heroes that the Australian press dubbed it Godzilla, the unstoppable monster from Japan. The R32 was so good it was banned. Organizers in both Japan and Australia changed the rules to legislate it out of existence. In being banned, the R32 became an outlaw, and its legend was cemented forever. The R32 GT-R had created an impossible problem for Nissan. How do you replace a legend? How do you create a sequel to a car that was so dominant it was banned from competition? Their answer, which arrived in 1995, was the R33 Nissan Skyline GT-R. And at first, the world was underwhelmed. The R33 was bigger. It was heavier. Its styling was softer, rounder, less aggressive than the raw R32. It was based on a larger sedan platform, and the initial criticism was that Nissan had gone soft, turning their Warrior into a comfortable Grand Tourer. This criticism, however, was fundamentally wrong. The R33 was not a softer car. It was a smarter car. What Naganori Ito and his team had focused on was refinement. The added weight and longer wheelbase made the car more stable at the high speeds it was now famous for. The Atessa ETS all-wheel drive system was upgraded to Pro spec, adding an active limited-slip differential. The Supercars four-wheel steering was refined. The chassis was made significantly stiffer. While the engine was still the 276 horsepower RB26 DETT, the truth of the R33's capability was revealed not in a spec sheet, but at a specific 12.9-mile stretch of racetrack in Germany, the Nürburgring Nordschleife. This was the new battlefield. Nissan's test driver, Motoharu Kurosawa, piloted an R33 GTR around the Green Hell and achieved a time of 7 minutes and 59 seconds. This was a bombshell. It was the first time a production car had ever broken the mythical 8-minute barrier. The R33 was a full 21 seconds faster than the R32 it replaced. It was faster, more stable, and a more potent all-around weapon. It had evolved. This evolution culminated in one of the rarest and most desirable GTRs ever made, the Nismo 400R. This was not a regular production car. It was a complete, street-legal race car built by Nismo. The engine was bored out to 2.8 liters, producing a reliable 400 horsepower. It had a carbon fiber driveshaft, bespoke aerodynamics, and a performance that could challenge supercars from a decade later. Only 44 were ever made. The R33 proved that Godzilla could be both brutal and intelligent. But the world still missed the raw, boxy aggression of the original. Nissan was listening, and in 1999, they delivered the perfect storm. The R34 Nissan Skyline GTR. This was it. The apex. The R34 was a masterpiece of design and engineering, the culmination of everything Nissan had learned from the R32 and R33. The design was a return to form, aggressive, angular, and muscular. It was shorter than the R33, with a get-out-of-my-way presence. It looked like a fighter jet for the street. But the real revolution was inside. The R34 introduced the multifunction display, MFD. This was a 5.8-inch color screen on the dashboard, a feature developed in partnership with Polyphony Digital, the creators of the Gran Turismo video game. This was not just a navigation screen. It displayed live telemetry data that was previously reserved for race cars. Boost pressure, throttle position, G-forces, oil and water temperatures, even lap times. It was quite literally a video game screen brought to life in a real car. The RB26 engine was at its peak, now with ball-bearing turbos for faster response. The chassis was the stiffest yet. The 6-speed Getrag gearbox was robust. This was the Skyline GTR perfected. Nissan released a series of legendary special editions. The V-Spec, Victory Specification, with its advanced aerodynamics and a Tesla Pro system. The V-Spec Tuner, a final send-off named after the Nürburgring, featuring a blueprint engine with components from Nismo's N1 race cars. And then, years after production had ended, Nismo created the ultimate swan song, the Z-Tune. Nismo bought 20 used, low-mileage R34 V-Spec cars, stripped them down to the bare metal, and completely rebuilt them by hand. The engine was a 2.8-liter Z1 block, producing 500 horsepower. The bodywork was almost entirely carbon fiber. It was a $170,000 greatest hits album of the R34, and it is arguably the most desirable GTR ever created. But the R34's production ended in 2002. The RB26 engine was retired. The Skyline GTR name was once again put to rest. And this is where the story takes a critical turn. Because for most of the world, particularly in North America, the R32, R33, and R34 were illegal. Due to America's 25-year import rule, these cars could not be legally imported or driven on U.S. roads. They became forbidden fruit. You could see them in magazines, you could read about their track victories, but you could not have one. This unattainability only fueled the desire. This desire was fanned into a raging fire by two key cultural forces. First, the Gran Turismo video game series on the Sony PlayStation. For millions of kids in America and Europe, their first experience driving a Skyline GTR was not on a road, but on a television screen. The game wasn't just a game, it was an encyclopedia. You could buy a stock R32, tune it, race it, and learn why the RB26 was special, why the ATESA system was a cheat code for grip. Gran Turismo taught an entire generation to revere the GTR as the ultimate JDM weapon, a digital god-tier car. Second, the Fast and the Furious franchise. While the first film featured other JDM heroes, it was 2003's Too Fast, Too Furious that put the GTR front and center. Paul Walker's character, Brian O'Connor, appears in a silver and blue R34 GTR. This was not a subtle product placement. The car was a co-star. The sight of this forbidden Japanese monster, weaving through traffic, its digital MFD glowing, cemented its image in pop culture forever. The R34 became the face of the JDM tuning scene. This was the perfect storm. A car banned from racing for being too fast. A car banned from import, making it an object of ultimate desire. A car that was the undisputed king of the most popular racing game on Earth. And a car that was the hero vehicle in a blockbuster movie franchise. The R34 wasn't just a car anymore. It was a global icon, a legend, and the world was now asking one question. Nissan has conquered Japan, conquered Australia, and conquered pop culture. What could they possibly do next? They were about to answer by taking the fight to the final frontier, the world's established supercar elite. The Skyline name was about to be dropped. The next GTR would be a global car, a global killer. The R35 was coming. After the R34, the world waited. And waited. For 5 long years, there was no GTR. The silence was deafening. Nissan was facing financial trouble, and it took a partnership with Renault and the leadership of Carlos Ghosn to stabilize the company. But behind the scenes, the beast was being reborn. And this time, it was being built with a different mission. This would not be a Japanese market homologation special that the world lusted after from afar. This would be a global car, sold in America, Europe, and Asia, built from the ground up to challenge and defeat the global supercar elite on their home turf. The Skyline name was officially dropped. This was now simply the Nissan GTR. Its codename, R35. The project was led by a man who would become a legend in his own right, Kazutoshi Mizuno. Mizuno-san was not just an engineer. He was a philosopher, a relentless, obsessive perfectionist. His vision was not just to build a fast car, but to create an everyday supercar. A car that you could drive to the grocery store in the snow, and then take to a track and humiliate a Ferrari. To do this, they threw away the old formula. The beloved RB26 inline-6 was gone. In its place was a new heart, the VR38 DTT, a 3.8-liter V6 with 2 turbochargers. But this was not a mass-produced engine. Each one, to this day, is assembled by hand from start to finish by one of 5 master craftsmen, known as Takumi, in a hermetically sealed, temperature-controlled clean room in Yokohama. Each engine bears a plaque with the name of the Takumi who built it. The biggest change was the platform. The R35 featured a world-first premium midship transaxle layout. The engine was in the front, but the transmission and transfer case were moved to the rear of the car. This gave the R35 a near-perfect weight distribution, the secret to its physics-defying agility. And for the first time, it had a dual-clutch transmission. The gear shifts were brutally, inhumanly fast. In 2007, Nissan unveiled the R35 to the world. And they did it with a single devastating number. 7 minutes, 38 seconds. That was its lap time at the Nürburgring. This $70,000 Nissan was faster than a $200,000 Porsche 911 Turbo. It was faster than a Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. It was faster than a Pagani Zonda. The established supercar hierarchy was shattered. Godzilla had not just returned. It had staged a global coup. The Germans, particularly Porsche, were furious. They bought an R35, tested it at the Ring, and publicly claimed they couldn't replicate the time. They accused Nissan of using special, non-standard cheater tires. Nissan's response was a masterstroke of Japanese corporate shade. Mizuno-sen calmly replied that they did use the standard, factory-shipped Dunlop tires, and that if Porsche's drivers needed help, he would be happy to fly them to Japan and show them how to drive the car properly. The R35 became the supercar killer. It was a technological powerhouse. Its launch control was so violent, so effective, that it could launch from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 3.5 seconds, a time that, in 2007, was reserved for million-dollar hypercars. But the R35's greatest trick wasn't its debut. It was its longevity. The car has been in production for over 15 years, a lifetime in the automotive world. But it was never the same car. Mizuno implemented a philosophy of Kaizen, or constant improvement. Every single model year, the R35 got better. A few more horsepower here. A revised suspension tune there. A stronger launch control code. A 2008 GTR is a different, slower car than a 2012 GTR, which is different again from a 2017 GTR. The car evolved in real time. This evolution reached its zenith with the Nismo versions. Lighter, more powerful, and draped in carbon fiber aerodynamics, the Nismo GTR went back to the Nürburgring in 2013 and set a blistering 708 lap, proving that even after all those years, Godzilla was still the king. But the R35's final legacy, much like its ancestors, would be written in the tuning shops. If the R32's RB26 was the perfect engine for 1,000 horsepower, the R35's VR38 was the perfect engine for 2,000, or 3,000, or more. Tuning companies like AMS Performance with their Alpha G package and Extreme Turbo systems pushed the R35 platform into the stratosphere. We saw 2,000 horsepower street cars, 3,500 horsepower drag monsters. The R35 became the undisputed king of the half-mile and quarter-mile street car drag racing scene, running 6-second passes. It was and still is the ultimate bragging rights car. And now, as production of the R35 finally winds down, we stand at the end of an era. The age of the internal combustion GTR is over. The world has moved on. The future is electric. So, how did the Nissan GTR become a legend? It's because the GTR was never just one thing. It was the Hakosuka, the Genesis, a raw, uncompromising racer that proved a Japanese sedan could dominate. It was the R32, the Resurrection, a technological terror that was so superior, it had to be banned from competition. It earned the name Godzilla. It was the R34, the icon, the forbidden fruit. A car that became a global cultural hero through video games and movies, representing the absolute peak of the JDM tuning world. And it was the R35, the global killer, the everyday supercar, that shattered the European elite and proved that relentless, constant improvement could defeat billion-dollar pedigrees. The GTR's legacy is a philosophy. It is the relentless, defiant pursuit of performance. It is the giant slayer mentality, a symbol of Japanese engineering's refusal to accept the status quo. Proved time and time again that you don't need a high price or a fancy European badge to be the king. You just need to be smarter, tougher, and more focused than everyone else. We don't know what the R36 will be. We've seen the Hyperforce electric concept. It will undoubtedly be fast. But will it have the same soul? The same defiant, monstrous character? That remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. The legend of the GTR is written in steel, in code, and in culture. Godzilla may return to the depths for a time. It may change its form, but it never truly dies. It's just waiting to rise again.